today we are going to discuss about the role of engineers as managers, consultants and leaders. So, as we understand, like we are discussing about ethics in engineering practice, we assume like they are employees of organizations or they are functioning as independent consultants, and as and when they progress up in the organizational hierarchy, they will be like assuming roles of leaders, managers beyond only their technical competencies. They need to develop these competencies also, because they will be taking up these roles. So, in playing the role of a manager, leader or a consultant, they'll be facing number of ethical issues, dilemmas regarding various pockets of decisions that they need to take in these roles of managers, consultants or leaders. The present module focuses on the ethical issues with respect to these roles and what the engineers possible course of action should be when they are facing dilemma in this regard. That will be the total coverage that will be given in this module. So, let us see what is there in the discussion for this module. The module will cover the role of engineers as managers, the managers as professionals, promoting an ethical climate, managing conflict, principles for conflict resolution, consulting engineers, advertising competitive bidding, safety and client needs, engineers as expert eyewitnesses and advisors, expert witnesses in courts, abuses in courts, advisors in planning and policy making, moral leadership, habits of highly effective moral leaders, engineering functions as managers and the situations that they must tackle, and we will go for a detailed discussion of all these things. Now, firstly we are going to discuss like engineers as managers. So, what we find, like though engineers undergo a full-fledged education as a technical education training as a professional, so after their completion of their early stages in their career, after some initial years, they move into the role of managers, for which they do not get actual any training as a part of the course that they have learned as engineers. So, we may wonder like why this transition happen. This transition may happen because there are two factors. The companies may prefer for dual role, because it is always good to have a manager who understands the technical background as the engineer does, and of course there are a lot of corporate incentives which may attract the engineer into the domain of management. So, what we understand, like as we are discussing, many companies now prefer engineers who can play the dual role of managers, because sometimes their technical understanding complements the managing the technological corporations, and it is easier to teach engineers the business side of corporate works, because of their generally it's taken there of the very high aptitude level, and it is very easy to teach them about it. Another thing which is very important is engineers to have a very high technical and quantitative analysis skill, and they have great confidence in problem solving, which also makes them like more ready for choosing roles like supply chain management for reducing costs. So, because it requires a lot of computational skills. This helps the organization to save an additional manpower. So, because if one person can do both the roles, then it is of course easy for the organization to, because it is saving on the role, on the cost, and also because the person with the technical background, if he can be trained on the soft skill part or the behavioral aspect part, so he can do both the jobs very well. So, another reason for the engineers to, so what we have discussed is about the companies perspective on going for a searching for person with like who can play dual roles. From the point of attraction for the engineers is of course high perks and salaries involved at the, for the management cadre, and it includes high salary, maybe greater authorities, prestige and recognition, and like dual career options in organizations, like it helps the person to rise up the ladder very quickly by taking up administrative or managerial roles. So, these are point of attractions again for the engineers to slowly shift from technical to managerial or administrative roles. So, the transition from being technical core people to managers requires like it an expansion of skill in like scheduling and finances, marketing, in managing human resources, then in coordinating and motivating people, abilities to make risky decisions and with high precisions. So, and engineers really have to work on their interpersonal skills because they have to manage a lot of people in the organization. So, these are the professional requirements of a person who like visualizes himself or herself to be playing the role of a manager. So, the primary responsibility of the engineer as a manager is to not only to produce a product which is valuable in nature, but also definitely to maintain a well balance of relationship with people like the customers, employees and general public, and to have a great deal of respect for them. So, and the persons and the safe conduct and safe products should be their primary concern and not for profits. And as you can see, like two of the major responsibilities of engineers as managers are promoting an ethical climate within the organization and resolving conflicts. We will discuss both of them in details. Promoting an ethical climate. So, what we understand by ethical climate is that it is a working environment which complements morally responsible conduct while taking both short term and long term decisions in the organizations. So, morally responsible conduct should be recognized, it should be respected in the organization, and it should be like encouraged while taking short term and long term decisions. So, how it is done, how this morally responsible conduct is encouraged in the organization is by the combination of maybe formal policies, procedures which is institutionalized, and also maybe through informal practices and traditions, job attitudes and commitments. engineers as managers have a great responsibility in creation of such ethical climates, because it is in many cases like managing by doing. So, if they themselves as engineers, as professionals, they themselves follow these procedures, practices, and encourages others to do it by themselves following the procedures, practices, taking care of the safety of people, and being morally responsible for the actions, then others are also going to get encouraged and learn from them, and slowly the whole organization is going to function like an ethical organization. It may so happen like there are different types of ethical climate, and with like that may prevail in different organizations. So, there could be two extremes, like in one extreme it may be so like the organization is very indifferent to ethics. So, such discussions may happen only in boardroom or in meetings, but the organization is not very serious about how to institutionalize the ethical practices, how to reframe maybe the policies and procedures, how to see how to follow up like it is followed by every employee. So these things may not be there. At other extreme, the organization, these are organizations which not only imbibe ethical conduct in mission and vision, but how they take a lot of interest in understanding how to make it a part of the daily functions and procedures in the organization. So that is very important. So you can find two extremes. At one part where some type of organizations are somewhat reluctant about the ethical climate, and the other extreme are organizations which are proactively trying to see how ethics can best be incorporated in the organization and taking positive measures for it. So, the second role of, as described, of the engineers as managers are dealing effectively with conflict. So, what we find over here, like in conflict means it is a value disagreement in what I believe and disagreement in what the other person believes. So, managers have the authority and responsibility to resolve or prevent conflicts that threaten corporate efficiency. So, if the conflict is not a healthy conflict, if it is not a functional conflict, but it becomes a dysfunctional conflict in which that it threatens the corporate efficiency, then the managers have the authority and responsibility either to resolve or prevent these conflicts. So, but in doing so, managers should never use their authoritarian power to guide others, and decisions should never be thrusted on others. So, it is, as suggested, should be managing by doing, leading by example. So, you have to encourage people in order to build an ethical climate to understand the importance of these things and voluntarily participate in it by following certain practices. So, what we understand, like the job of a manager or a engineer who is functioning as a manager is to create climate in which conflicts can be resolved constructively. So, to understand that, in order to create a climate in which conflicts can be resolved constructively, we must first understand like what are the different types of conflicts that may arise or that engineer manager will be facing in a particular organization. So, what we find, like engineering project managers have found 7 different kinds of conflicts that they may face. So, first is of course conflict over schedules, where they more specifically when support is needed from other departments. Conflicts over projects and departments which are more important to the organization, means who is more closer to the power center, who is more important for the our main output of the organization. So, because in that way there will be the allocation of resources and centralization of power, like which department is more powerful than the other. It could be conflicts over personnel resources, also conflicts over technical issues like alternative ways of solving problems within particular cost, schedules and performance objectives. Conflicts could be also over administrative procedures, conflicts could be personality conflicts, and conflicts could be over costs also. So, what we find, as many different interfaces are there with the other interested parties, similarly interested parties. So, these could be the zones where like conflicts may arise. So, as a result of doing that, as a way of solving these conflicts, what could be the ways in which this conflict can be solved? There are 4 widely accepted principles for conflict resolution. First is people, separate the people from the problem. Then interest, focus on the interests, not positions. Options means generate a variety of possibilities, and criteria, insist that results be based on some standard criteria. So, first we will look into the separate people from the problem, how it can be done. So, this in no way indicates like only the problem is important, but not the people are not important, is not focusing into that. It is trying to discuss like how we can avoid personality clashes between people. Whatever we are like debating about should be about the task at hand, and maybe this debate gives rise to a very healthy discussion which brings out more improvement in the task. But if that takes turn into like blaming people and like finding out faults with each other, then it takes a different perspective, and that's why what happens in many cases, people just forget the original issue of discussion and go on blaming each other, which is a kind of dysfunctional conflict. So, here it is told the focus should be on solving the problems rather than blaming the people. Every party should be given an equal chance to present their point of view before the final solution is reached. So, next is whenever we are talking of interests, then focus on interests, not on positions. Sometimes what happens, like due to the positional power, people may like dominate and make others accept certain things. But if a conflict needs to be reduced, then sometimes we need to focus on the interest and not on the positions, like from where it is coming, the suggestion is coming from where, and at what level of hierarchy that the person is in. Positions here refers to stated views, not only those who are a party to the bargaining clause, but who can think correctly. So, the focus while resolving the issues, like should be on meeting the interests, like of those who are in the positions of authority. But again, the focus should also be coming up with solutions for the interest of all parties. So, it may not so happen like the person who is in positional authority, by using that power, may try to get only the benefit of the resolution of the issues and getting a favorable conclusion for himself or herself. So, and the solutions should not be geared towards the interests of only those who are in positions of authority, but we should try to come up with a solution like which is of interest to all the parties who are concerned in a particular, like things to be done. So, so what we find, like the interests of everyone, of all the parties, needs to be taken into consideration while we are trying to find out what could be the best possible solution. So, if we are to do that, if we are to look into the interest of all the parties involved, and not only those who are maybe the positions of authority, and we have to come up with solutions which will map to the interest of mostly all the parties involved, then what we need to do is to, like for one particular problem, we need to develop a variety of options for brainstorming to find out their acceptability, applicability for serving the interest of all the parties involved. And so, it means a variety of options need to be generated before it is finally decided what to do, and those options should be generated keeping into like at the back of the mind the interest of all the parties involved. So, often the best solutions are not compromises that split the differences between the stated positions, but the creative options that have not been brought into focus. So, what happens, like there should not be solutions which will try to make a divide between the creative options or the like stated positions, but we should try to come up with solutions which with more options, where we are going to select that one which is trying to meet the need of all the parties involved, and not only those who are financially but like ethically well. So, what we find as a caring perspective, so we need to give a coverage to the interest of all the interested parties. It may or may not be possible to answer to the needs in a similar way to of all the parties, but we can always do a rank ordering in terms of based on their expressed needs and what they were approved and the resources and the constraints that we have. we can do it in a rank ordering way, like this is the most important, this is the party for which the meeting the need is most important, followed by the second and the third one. So we have to find out options, we have to think of ways in which we can try to meet the need of the all the parties, so that nobody feels like we have been deprived, my voice has not been represented or heard. Okay, so that type of balancing nature attitude the engineer must try to develop within himself or herself, if he or she is visualizing himself or herself as a manager who is responsible for conflict resolution. Now, if we again going for this discussion where there are different options and people have to expand on the options and think of what is right and what is wrong, then of course there must be some yardstick standard to tell like this is right and this is wrong, and everything cannot be left to the subjective decisions, because the raters may vary also in their evaluation of what is right and what is wrong. So, the next important focus of the discussion should generally be focused towards the criteria. So, what is the objective standard that needs to be followed to show like the standard has been met, and so this is, or it needs to be developed the solutions. So, criteria is the result should be based on some objective standards. So, in like often in a corporate, criteria that must be followed while solving problems are clearly defined. It is important so to develop a sense of fairness before these criteria are met, otherwise disagreements may develop into the context of will. So, if we are growing to, as we were telling, like it is as managers, as leaders, it is not always just dictating people, telling them to do things, but it is also like myself doing, and then you observe and motivated to get to the way that I am doing, which is called like leading by doing. So, in that case again, like when we have to arrive at a criteria, it is very important that we discuss with others and come to a consensus what is the standard needs to be followed in the particular department. So, it develops a sense of fairness amongst all. So, we will try to take up small cases, like as we see over here in expressive views, like you are the production engineer and technical manager for a corporation that manufactures medical equipments. So, injuries like cuts and lacerations are rare, but we cannot tell like they don't happen, they happen. So, these injuries are also happening. So, co-workers sometimes comes to know, like maybe one of the production specialist is under my supervision, who is working is HIV positive, may have developed AIDS. The workers come to you asking either he or they should be transferred. You indicate that no transfers, but to the comparable positions are available, but the workers insist. So, how you may best resolve this conflict is a point of discussion. So, what we find over here, like in this particular things, 2-3 things are coming to conflict. First is the sharing of information, of personal information, like if this person is HIV positive, to the organization know about it or do not know about it. And next is the outcome of the person in terms of stereotype, like I will be functioning with people who possess certain qualities. I will not be working with people who possess some um, qualities. Like here what we find, like the workers were not interested to work with the person having HIV positive. Now we are in as a decision maker, as mentioned in this case, people in many times will be in dilemma, because whether to listen to the greater number of workers and take some actions, but again these actions will be violating the right for work for the person who is HIV positive. So what to do in this is, like, again you can lead by doing, means you can, whether you accept the person with having AIDS for your type of work or not depends on, like, whether it is an like necessary criteria for performing a job or rejecting the particular person. So if it is so, like this is not an essential quality and thus it is leading to a prejudice, it is a stereotype, then what happens, you may show a positive step by embracing the person and putting him in an organization where truly the person do not lose a job due to his health issues, and if these health issues are not directly connected with the nature of the performance of the employee in that particular job. So, and if this is done, and if the others see like your positive mindset and support and how you are trying to act on these, and if you also try to remove the wrong ideas and maybe fear in the mind of the other people and make them interact with this person suffering from HIV, maybe this will better try to answer the conflict. So one side you need to see whether possessing this disease is going to hamper the performance of the person who is in case point over here. If it is not, then we cannot discriminate a person and like deprive him of certain benefits like which the other employees are having. But given said that, because the safety of the other workers who stay who doesn't maybe want to interact with this person due to some stereotype in their mind. So you have to think of the safety of those individuals also, and maybe it's more important to generate an awareness camp about it and to find out like in what cases, what like the do's and don'ts type, so that they get to know the disease in a better way. Sometimes because they are ignorant, they try to form judgments about some cases which may be a wrong interpretation. So that needs to be like re-looked into. So what we find, like this will lead to these discussions should be based on the criteria, and which is based on objective standards. So the criteria should be followed while solving problems. So it is important to develop a sense of fairness before these criteria are met, and like otherwise, like if the people don't feel like they have been consulted like before fixing up any criteria which everyone is going to adhere to, then it may lead to disagreements and develop contests of will. So, going back to that, what we find over there in this particular case is, you may also try to find out, like, because here in this case no transfers to comparable positions are available, then what you do is, like, following this this is a like a sense of fairness. So, the treatment, like the judgment, if to remove or transfer this person, could be against the could be discriminating for the person and not like a fairness to that person. So, while we are taking any decision to resolve this conflict, then we, because this we may have developed it, these are all assumptions which may or may not be true if you are going to go for an in-depth learning about it. So, the first and foremost part of responsibility of the like you as a production engineer, in this case a technical manager, to develop proper awareness in the mind of people, to develop proper responses, and to remove the fear part. Maybe you take one step forward in, like, accepting the person in your organization and your life. And if the others observe and see, like, you have not faced with any adverse consequences due to being in contact with this HIV person, maybe others are going to change their views also. So, next we will discuss about the, from the role of consulting engineers, we have discussed about the role of leaders as managers, and next we are going to discuss about the role of consulting engineers. So, we have seen here three roles, as managers, as leaders, and as consultant engineers. In this discussion, we have discussed about the role of leaders as managers. We are going to discuss the role, their role as consulting engineers. Here we are, when we are trying to discuss the role of consulting engineers, we will be discussing those roles of engineers who are in private practice, and they are not in the form of salaries, they are not salaried employees, but they compensated by the fees for the service that they render. And there could be various conflicting issues related to that, which we are going to see in the next module. Thank you.